Some things never change, and in the case of a remaster, that's a good thing.
And there was this other curious urge that I was seeing in other people, and not me so much, which is they just loved killing her. It was a very strange thing.
Few games boast the same legacy as Lara Croft's Tomb Raider, with the first 3 games coming out back-to-back in 1996, 97, and 98 respectively. Groundbreaking 3D environments at a time when the competition was still doing this. What have I got? A novel female protagonist that didn't look too different from the other characters of the time, but stood apart thanks to her bold demeanour. A character who in fact became so popular that she surpassed the world's biggest girl group in raw profit power while they were at their prime. Still now holds the world record for featuring on the most magazine covers. And thanks to these 3 games specifically, publisher Eidos was named the fastest growing company in the world at the 1998 World Economic Forum. So the cultural impact of Tomb Raider in the 90s just cannot be overstated. And as a result, for years now, Tomb Raider fans have been just like the rats in London. Wherever you stand, you're never more than 2 meters away from one of them. Pretty much all adult gamers will remember 2013's outstanding reboot with its horror and gritty kills. Many too will remember 2006, the time where grand homes looked really cool when they were filled with wires and technology. Extreme sports were radical, dude. And Lara's enemies went down like whack-a-moles. And then there's the rest of us who remember when parents tried to limit us to 1 hour of games a day or else our eyes would go square, a well-known medical condition of the time, who also remember a time when Tomb Raider actually looked like this. Except it didn't. It actually looked like this. Wherever you sit on that timeline, this title is realistically aimed at 2 sets of people, and it really is that simple. We have older gamers looking to revisit the original, and newer players that care to experience it for the first time, for historical reasons or because you're more tolerant of platforming than other gamers. And hats off if that is you, because indulging in this game for the first time won't be without frustrations. Thanks to the work of Timur Gagiev, the modder turned developer who was hired to, in his own words, assemble a dream team of true fans with complete freedom. This is a game by the fans, for the fans, without profit being the driving factor, and executed with a good degree of competency. And that makes this a rare gem, but are you actually a fan? Be careful how you answer, because these games aren't for casuals. Straight into the menu, and the music is as good as it ever was, with the melody wrapping me in a blanket of nostalgia that takes me right back. The first game prioritized quiet isolation, whereas the latter games attempted for a more cinematic score, and neither approach has aged a bit in all these years. Already you can toggle between old and new with a dedicated button. It's cool that while Lara's model now matches the HD resolution that the game displays, she still rocks an old school vibe, which is key to making you forget that you're playing a remastered game. If you're returning to the series, you'll probably have to pause for thought every now and then as you forget precisely which version you're playing, which is of course a testament to the familiarity of the controls and the world. A quick toggle, however, will remind you precisely how far we've come in 28 years. The respective home levels, which were open-ended and designed simply to explore and test out moves, were so innovative and conceptually have aged well, with the second and third being the most interesting due to their hidden passages and activities. Outside we now have 3D foliage which fills the passages and sticks out of the walls. Textures that impart anything from moss stains on wood through to photorealistic bricks and stone carvings. Considering the high-res and low-res versions look the same, I presume that they reskinned the original, but the whole thing's been pulled off so well that you can't even tell, and it doesn't really matter. And now we have competent bump mapping that pushes extra depth into the otherwise pretty brutish geometric shapes, and these little improvements across the screen do all add up to create a considerably more immersive environment. The textures and shadow effects aren't perfect, but we get some odd artifacting in some places, but ultimately they did a heck of a lot more for the immersion than they took away, especially considering that now all 3 games have received that same treatment. Side by side, the sequels no longer hold sway with the visuals. It's a little grating that Lara no longer changes physically between games as she did in the original, but these are just minor gripes. Just like with the original game and the original graphics, the environments are at their best when using simple shapes to create simple real-world objects. So at a passing glance, Lara's assault course is far easier to navigate and visually pleasing than, say, the jungles of India at the start of Tomb Raider 3, that looked messy as hell before, and with the added shrubbery aren't any easier to navigate. But this is just a tribute to how ruthless the team has been in preserving the essence of the original, while not taking it upon themselves to start shoehorning in quality of life improvements that creep outside the scope of what it is, which is a remaster of the original. And yet, as you continue to toggle visuals, which I found never really got old, what's cool is that you can see the same disparities, like Lara's foot intersecting with the same geometry in both. So it's not clever trickery, they really are just toggling the textures and the lighting, as well as a scattering of other effects, like for example Lara's blood spilling into the water as she moves through it. The game isn't perfect and the improvements aren't without their issues, and they're usually little things that can be circumnavigated with some patience, but for example the boat in Venice had a habit of restricting Lara's movement if you swam underneath it until you jumped through the middle of it. Now the camera does have a habit of going a little haywire sometimes too, but it is a 30-year-old game, and to be honest you'll cruise over the top of these quirks without much thought. The world is still divided into cubes, and Lara of course still moves with the classic tank controls, unless you indulge in the newer 8-axis control scheme, but we'll get back to that. The classic controls were divisive even back in the day, mainly because there is a steep learning curve to keeping Lara alive, because of how unforgiving the game is with a single wrong input. You'll get on board with driving Lara like a boat soon enough, but one slight mishap as you carve around a corner, and don't expect the game to pick up the slack as you sail over a juicy looking ledge. And in truth, it is frustrating. This isn't a quality, but I praise the devs for not correcting it, because the dark comedy of Lara constantly missing her target, and for no obvious reason other than coding limitations, makes no attempt to save herself and plummets to a bone-crunching end, again and again. If this could have been a meme back in the day, it probably would have been, because it's the one constant among all Tomb Raider players. Back and side flips are basically your main tool for evasion, but to pull them off, you have to press the jump button and then press a direction after you jump rather than before. And even after hours of playing, countless hours banked through my childhood, I was still messing it up. It's just really unintuitive, and if you want her to flip in the air, a mainstay of the game's combat since Tomb Raider 2, then you have to input the jump direction slowly followed by the flip input really quickly, and it just lacks the fluidity of modern control sets. It just feels a bit unnatural in comparison. And then this is doubled down by this absolute lack of forgiveness for the inputs. You are often required to input precise button presses with very little guidance to bypass some areas, and some of the secrets were and are still beyond me. Tomb Raider completionists have the patience of saints, let me tell you. Tap back in air and she might hop right back off a ledge, and if you do it at an angle, you can't even grab the side. This is chalk and cheese next to all modern platformers where protagonists universally grab any ledge automatically if you walk them off the edge, including the later Tomb Raider entries. If you long jump when you meant to do a standing jump, there's no controlling her speed in the air like so many modern platformers. She'll miss her mark, and if that pickup was important to you, then it's back to the beginning. So then we have the new multi-directional controls. If Mario 64 managed it the same year as Tomb Raider 1, then you wouldn't think it would be that hard, but not so much. The new control's biggest issue is that Lara no longer moves independently of the camera, nor can she hop back, and so for example lining yourself up and then performing a classic long jump over a single tile actually becomes harder. Harder to the point that a long jump across a single tile is actually no longer a sure thing, which, with the tank controls, is like the one move you can guarantee would work every time. You can navigate open areas and the general level faster, which is a big win, but the platforming elements were effectively puzzles built to work with the original moveset, and so changing up these controls will get you killed just as often, but just for a different, equally frustrating reason. But for some stupid reason, often the action button wouldn't let me climb up, or the cruel button would leave me stuck in this compromising position, and I'd have to toggle back to tank controls just to bypass that bit. Like literally right here, this is her crawling when I don't want her to. I can't get her up no matter what I press. And then this is her not crawling when I do want her to, which is kind of a result of the modern controls feeling like she should be able to move faster than she can, but it's still attached to the legacy control system, which expects you to stop and take a breather and just wait for a moment before she's then able to crouch. But the funniest example is here, which is just a simple hole designed to work with the classic controls. It's not even supposed to be a puzzle. You just roll over the edge, catch onto the ladder and climb down. But with the modern controls, I couldn't figure out how to do it. Why is it so hard? So I just put the classic controls back on and boom, first try. Do the old let go and grab trick on the ladder, just like old times. Yeah, I kind of think I like the old controls. Combat, on the other hand, seems less clunky with the ability to just run behind enemies and take them out with less hassle, and being able to manipulate Lara around or away from hazards is easier. So yeah, the controls do need an update, but fundamentally the new scheme does make the game easier, and that is a welcome pair of stabilizers in a game that is so unforgiving. But due to being rough around the edges, it often causes more trouble than it's worth. Another addition to the game is the action indicator, and seeing it here in its pixelated alter ego makes it kind of hard to imagine the game without it, especially as it's a feature that came 28 years too late. It now confirms when there is an action that you can take, which helps both with aligning Lara, but also when trying to figure out which object will allow you to progress, like confirming that only one of these boxes in Nevada can actually be moved, which saves you having to shuffle around in front of every single face of every single box just to be sure. These games come at a reasonable price, considering that a fair amount of work has been invested to bring them into the 2020s, which includes not limited to stable frame rate and much higher resolution, but otherwise they really are classic remasters to a fault, and exhibit many of the oversights of the first. There are some aspects that I remember being cheap or annoying at the time, but now you look back and it just seems charming because we expect these things to be there. Like halfway through India at the start, you meet this crazy blonde guy, and when he jumps over the edge, it's like they told the voiceover guy to just move the mic further from his mouth or something, except he did it too early.
Yeah.
Gets me every time. Or this line in Nevada where the guy says, "Oh, she's wearing hot pants."
Maybe she's an eco-terrorist or something.
And they wear hot pants, huh?
It's like, no, they're trousers. Man, that annoyed me when I was 10. I love that I find myself flagging these same issues almost 3 decades later. It's nitpicking for sure, but it's the accuracy of the remake that allows me to do that. I was even a little taken aback to hear this guy referring to the crazy blonde man as retarded.
I don't want to be misrepresented by that retarded researcher you've just been with.
Lara.
I mean, the guy's not even acting like he's retarded. Schizophrenic, maybe.
Who are you talking about?
All you, hundreds of you, talking and chattering and breaking my brain up.
But considering the language wasn't supposed to be edgy, it was just what he said, I just don't think we would hear that kind of language in a modern script. If you want to play a next-gen version of the original, you can just indulge in Tomb Raider Anniversary, a reimagining of Tomb Raider 1 that Crystal Dynamics released as their second title back in 2007. But Tomb Raider, especially the first 3 games, really are a slice of gaming history. And that's what we're here for, the history. But with a few solid quality of life updates that just makes the game a little bit easier to play. Like now you can save whenever you want in all 3 games, not just Tomb Raider 2. Although again, thanks to the legacy menu screen, get ready to hit load instead of save like half the time, which will pile on another layer of irritation. Just like her blatant disregard for all things living in another eyebrow-raising aspect of the game, with enemies that include endangered Bengals, and as good as extinct Chinese tigers, which probably happened after she visited, as well as bats and vultures and God knows how many other animals. But the 90s was a different time, man, and that is what this game serves us up on a silver platter. A solid slice of a different time. Only through a pair of magic glasses that makes the blocky visuals just a little bit less offensive to our post-millennial Gen Z eyes. If you can like or sub, I would be so grateful. I've only just hit 2,000 subscribers and I have a long way to go. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself and hopefully see you next time.